about. And it turns out there are myths about, you know, the Sasquatch is that it can disappear, it can shapeshift, it can hide itself and, you know, become trees, or it can become something. And or they also call them the star people. And so if you go into, you know, other indigenous stories, Hammerson Peters here, that's why I pull up his channel. I like this guy a lot. He does a really good Canadian research, and he has an Indian Legends of the Interior Plateau. Even just watching that video, you'll see that there's a lot of things in the forest, actually. And that's what I think we're dealing with. I think some paranormal things expose themselves and others do not. And maybe they're versions of Sasquatch, maybe they are Sasquatch, or maybe they're not at all. Who knows? But that's what I think we're dealing with here, is a paranormal entity that still you know, can take things and take people if need to be. So is the result, what I think Missing 411 is the result of geographical area containing a paranormal ecosystem based on electromagnetic frequencies and currents natural to the environment. That's the thesis. Now we're going to go into the sightings. Are you ready? Are you ready, Ian?
Yeah, let's buckle up for some more high strangeness, Jeff.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. I live in beautiful Vancouver. I love my city. I absolutely love my city. I never leave Vancouver. We have beaches. We got the whole thing here. So this is where I live. So, but it's on its sheer strangeness I didn't know about until I read the database. So in 1966, two people saw a portal. A portal literally opened up over top of UBC, right over here. They were actually over here on the highway, they said, and they witnessed it. It was so large, they were able to witness a yellow portal open up over top UBC. I thought that was really neat. There's the details of that. Two people witnessed a light being emerge out of the forest at White Cliff Park over here. And that was recorded by UFO BC. In 1968, right over here, a UFO landed. Apparently, the report is a bit strange. I have to admit, it's from one person. He treated it very nonchalantly. Maybe a human could do that. I don't know. He was not fazed by there being a 4-foot tall non-human man. He heard a voice in his head, and it said, "Would you like to pray?" And he bowed and put his hands down. Anyway, there's a whole exchange here. I said a few more things and then waved, and he waved back. That's a very strange, strange sighting.
Yeah, Jeff, I just wanted to say in there that's typical of what Jenny Randalls from the UK coined the term the Oz factor, where people behave differently in the presence of UFOs.
Behave differently? What do you mean by that?
Certainly the way he was very accepting and compliant with what was going on, and not running for the hills and screaming, "What's going on? This is a bit crazy," or whatever. It seems to be another case where the compliance, he drops down his guard, and again he's accepting of what's going on before his eyes, even though it's the most absurd situation.
1974, over at Mount Cypress, there was actually a UFO landing on the back side of the mountain. Here's Mount Cypress. On the back side, two workers came across a bend on a logging road, or I think it's a maintenance road, and there was a UFO up top of a rock outcropping. So it was kind of sitting on the rock outcropping, and they just simply didn't know what it was. It had no definition. I think they said it was white and just maybe the size of a car or a little bit larger, and they didn't know what it was. And they grabbed a hammer and a wooden I think a wooden bar or something to maybe knock on it and do things with it. As they approached it, it said, "Turn around." They didn't talk to each other. They just got a message from it, and that was it. They were terrified. They went into the truck and they never spoke to each other. They went back down, and then they were maintenance workers. They told other people about it, and they were like laughing at them. They told their parents. The parents are the ones who took it to UFO BC. UFO BC went and investigated, and there was actually a burn mark on top of the rock outcropping. So that was a really interesting case. Okay, this one is fun. I love this. This one is and this involves a synchronicity, if you really think about it. If you look at the synchronicity, it ends up being a communication. So this is Mount Frun. Again, we're on the cusp here of Vancouver, right on the cusp, and you get all this kind of paranormal activity up in the mountains. 5 companions decided to party on Mount Frun. They parked and hiked up for an hour and a half to a cabin. They were sitting around with a ghetto blaster playing when two of the members noticed flashes of lights in amongst the trees. When they turned off the ghetto blaster, a sound could be heard that resembled a high-pitched generator. One person, Mark, walked away from the group about 20 to 30 feet until he was underneath the source of the sound, which seemed to be above the 80-foot pine trees. The noise, which had now changed to a distinct pulsing, was so intense that he had to put his hands over his ears. Another companion later said that the noise seemed to send a wave through his head. The pulsing sound continued for another 5 to 10 seconds and then stopped. The whole thing lasted 45 seconds. There's UFO BC ties to it a bunch of other activity that happened in the area. So that's really fascinating. But the synchronicity is, listen, blaring it through the forest, and then something else, what are the statistical chances of having a paranormal event that also displays a really loud sound that you have to plug your ears from? I just think, like, that's a synchronicity. You have to look at what that means. And at the end of the day, it looks like something was annoyed that these people were blaring music out and, maybe disturbing the environment. We don't know the exact meaning, but the synchronicity behind it in and of itself ends up being a communication. And I just thought that was a really fascinating case. Okay, now we're getting personal with me. So yeah, I live in a weird place, eh? Vancouver is a strange, high strangeness area. I live on Canby Corridor. This strip right here, boom, is my neighborhood. I won't tell you exactly where I am, but oddly enough, I am on a highway of a lot of paranormal activity that I wasn't aware of. Like, I think I've mentioned before, I've taken a lot of pictures of things that are in the area, but the observation effect, I'm convinced they know when they're revealing something that will be able to be on a video versus when they're not. Yet they want me to know, so they're remaining distant enough that I can observe I'm witnessing something strange, and it'll be synchronistic. It will be around a presentation I was having, or maybe I was disturbed by the aliens about my story, and I don't want to talk about my story anymore, and then all of a sudden they're there. So for me, the synchronicity was a communication in and of itself. Ian, you remember the time I emailed you?
Yeah, I do.
I have 2 UFO videos on my website, and it's the second one. It says disappearing, and you see an orb, and I videoed them disappearing. Well, this was taken maybe a minute or two, or maybe a couple minutes before, and you can't tell what it is. For an observer who doesn't know, that's going to look like a star or something. It's actually a white orb, and it was moving gently, and then it just disappeared in sight. And then I had the sightings literally just minutes, or maybe 10 minutes later, right? So I took a picture, but this is the type of activity that was happening around me. But I'm just kind of showing that these are the classic videos I have, and this is all part of the Canby Corridor. So these are definitely the red guys that I've filmed, and they're on my website. So I just wanted to share those. Okay, so the Canby Corridor is a strange place. Let's check this out. This is City Hall. That is along the Canby Corridor. City Hall is right along here somewhere. So on the Canby Corridor, someone got a picture of a UFO above City Hall. Synchronicity, the guy was not taking a picture of a UFO. He was taking a picture of City Hall. The UFO shows up while he's got the camera set up, and the UFO aligned itself with City Hall. He takes the photo, and then the thing flies upwards, and it freaks the 2 men out. The whole story is here. It's fascinating as hell. But it's a synchronicity that UFO wanted to be shot. There's no way, plus the observer effect, there's no way that UFO did not know it was going to be taken a picture of. It's just the timing of it couldn't have been any more weirder. And so it ends up with being this very fascinating shot. It ended up being blue. Apparently the UFO was blue. So that's here along the Canby Corridor. But there's tons of sightings over City Hall. City Hall, we had one in 96, City Hall, orange wobbling UFO. Queen Elizabeth Park is just up the street along, there's QE Park. This is Canby right here. These are all the sightings along the Canby Corridor. This is all in the neighborhood. Everything just, a block or two away outside, and people are observing. I live in an area that is high traffic for UFO. I had no idea.
Well, here's the thing, Jeff, I just wanted to say, for many years, probably going back to 1956 with Amy Michelle, he did the UFOs and the Straight Line Mystery, followed up by Major Donald Kehoe and John Keel as to these sort of tracks and, let's say, trajectories that were being plotted. And that was later covered by other people who had looked at the harmonic 33 Bruce Cathy from
Right.
and so the UFOs in a straight line. It's no coincidence really to me to see that you've uncovered the evidence that this is like a UFO highway in this area. And hey presto, there's City Hall along that route. Is this route based on some sort of ancient ley line or some energy path that is then being used by UFOs?
Interesting, man. Interesting. Yeah.
Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating about the hill? So it actually crests. There's actually a ridge right here, but it might be something to do too with it being north-south. Right? It's a north-south road actually. So yeah, I'm not really clear. It's fascinating as hell though, and you're totally right. Like there's something kind of going on in the area. Also, by the way, to connect paranormal, ghost activity on the corner of Canby and King Edward Road. The house is known to be haunted. It's kind of a famous, well-known haunted house in Vancouver. It's actually been destroyed now, unfortunately. So who knows what happens to the ghost there? But right along the pathway. Very strange indeed.
Interesting, Jeff.
Yeah.
It was at a crossroads in a corner, and I've come across that in my own investigations myself.
It's two major roads in that way. Actually, you're right on the bang on the corner. Canby and King Edward is a kind of a second what do they call it when it's not a highway? It's an artery. It's arteries of Vancouver. You got it right on the corner.
Yeah. And that rings a bell with me with a case in Mexico that I dealt with, where the house, the occupants had of the house on a corner where it was fed into a main artery of the city. Also, there was this is quite near the volcano Popocatépetl. There was a kind of like a tributary of water that was flowing down it. But they had all manner of UFO activity as well as ghost activity, cryptid activity, and all this going on in this one corner, right on the corner where these roads met. Interesting
stuff, man. Okay, so that video, Ian, so the second video with which I see the UFOs disappearing, the one with that emailed you, 8 days before. Let's take a look. Here's back up. 8 days before that. So I'm over here. This is my neighborhood. 8 days before, someone sees an orange orb, very similar, and they're living over here, Maine and Marine. And so that's what this is. Maine and Marine, orange spherical object, 8 days before my own second sighting, filmed October 1st, 2020. This is 23rd of September. Maine and Marine Drive, bright orange lights. It was silent from what I could tell, and the orange was smooth and not really flashing. It was definitely circular and large, almost the size of a full moon. Very fascinating, man. This is Mystery and Marples. Okay. Okay, this one is on 70th. So right over here. This is 70th Road right here. And so right on 70th, you have a very wacky story. So Rod, his name is Rod, comes home, 2 a.m., no drugs, only had 4 drinks. He passed out on the couch. His brother packed him off to bed and to lay him down, still fully clothed, with his boots and everything on. So he basically lies down in bed. 1 hour later, Rod has rudely been awakened by a light going on and a man standing beside him, shaking the cobwebs out of his head. He asked the guy, "What are you doing in my apartment?" In which the other guy says, "What are you doing in my apartment?" It was then to Rod's utter amazement that he realized he was standing in his basketball shorts in the middle of someone else's living room. Understandably, everyone was disturbed. After being asked to leave, he found himself in the apartment hall directly in front of his own entrance. So he turns the knob and he realized the door was locked. And so he's only in his shorts. He has no keys. So he's pounding on the door. His brother basically opens the door and everyone's shocked. Like, how the hell did you get outside? And why are you in that other guy's house? I just put you in your bed. And everyone's kind of freaking out. No one understands what's going on. Upon entrance, Rod immediately went to the living room to find his house keys, where he left them on the coffee table. He then hurried into his bedroom, and it was there, to his real surprise, there lying on the bed were his clothes laid out like he was still in them. Pants tucked in boots, socks unturned and still in his tied boots. Both he and his brothers were now completely freaked out by the early morning's activities. It now appears Rod, in his own description, was sucked out of his boots and clothes, left in his shorts, taken through 2 locked doors, and placed in another apartment without waking up. Quite a feat indeed. Rod.
Yeah.
And Yeah.
It's an interesting note on that one that he had his modesty protected by leaving his boxer shorts on,
Yeah.
but otherwise,
Yes,
thank God
right.
for
Yeah.
that.
There's some modesty, right? There's some like, yeah, so we don't want to totally embarrass you. That's a good point. That's a good point. Look at the socks are still in the boots. That's insane. I love this story. And everyone, the UFO BC, right? They go and investigate, and everyone, there's witnesses, and everyone, this is their story, and they all stick to it, right? And they're all bewildered and puzzled. And Rod is freaked out. He doesn't know what the hell happened, and he thinks that maybe this was alien abduction, but he doesn't really he doesn't appear to, be an abductee. He doesn't really have all the rest of the marks throughout the other portions of his life. So Rod asked, had I ever heard of anything like this? And I told him, indeed, it is one of the stranger ones I had personally been told about, but that on a grander scale, this kind of strangeness is not unheard of. Poor guy, right? In John Carpenter's paper, Alien Humor, he writes of mistakes by our friendly visitors that pop up from time to time. Clothes on backwards, inside out, and in other cases, the wrong clothes period have shown up on innocent sleepers while awakened. In a hurry, or just showing that, hey, everybody else makes mistakes. It is anybody's guess what is going on. And my whole thing is, I always say, these are deliberate things by the aliens themselves. That is, if it's an abduction, by the way. I don't know that. But if it is, my whole thing is that this is done on purpose. And they're paranormal, meaning they would come back in an ethereal form and watch what you do with that information. And they might be the ones also telling you in a ton of telepathy, like, go tell someone, and they want to see what you do with that information and how it kind of percolates and sifts through the human where databases it might go into and that kind of stuff. So I'm totally convinced that those are deliberate by the aliens, and it would make sense if they were a paranormal species. There's no way that these would be accidents. So that's my theory anyway, but fascinating as hell. That happened right around the corner from my house. So yeah, strange indeed.
Part of it true, Jeff, may be down to what we call the trickster phenomena. It's kind of like the cosmic joke, as John Keel coined it.
Yeah,
the trickster phenomena.
Well, you'll see. So I'll mention that here with my own today with the elder, where they're playing with, it's like a joke for them. Like they're playing with my frame of reference. And so anyway, I'll have a thing here where, anyway, that's what she did with me. And I find it kind of funny personally when they do that. But okay, so my whole shtick, for those who know my story, is I kind of filmed these red orbs. And for me, there was a synchronicity with the red orbs, because the day that it happened, I was going to go talk to people about my alien contact the next night. That alone is a synchronicity. That for me is a communication. That is them saying, this is definitely us. There's no, the statistical chance of seeing a UFO the day before I was going to go talk to someone about my alien contact, that just seemed a bit too much random and or too unlikely to be random. And I took it right away as deliberate by them. Not just that, you have to understand how that the sighting happened. I couldn't have been any more on my couch and it be more any perfectly placed in front of my eyes. It was perfectly right in front of my window. Not just that, it pans out to the left. So it's very, very visible. That whole thing for me was meant, it was all part of an observation and all part of synchronicity. And I took it as a legitimate sighting. And it turns out these balls, these red orbs, are all over the place. And a lot of people actually see them. So you get a lot of these sightings. Red turned red in the sky, and then it stopped. Silent, bright red orbs, and then seemed to rise and fade out. Bright red, like a star, like a red star. As soon as it was there, it was gone. I noticed a glowing red ball, red in color. It was stationary above the horizon. Then it faded out of sight. Glowing red orb, then it vanished. All doing the same thing that mine did. And a bunch of them here. 5 red orbs, then it disappeared. 10 red orbs, then they faded and no longer visible. All in Vancouver. Look at that. Look at the times too, right? All recent. They appeared red lights, then disappeared, changing formations. Orange and red in color faded out. 2 red orbs, then disappeared. Very bright red, then went out. All of them. That's insane. And so we got someone else posting a red orb video.
Oh my! 2012
What
alien.
the fuck is that?
So there it is. There, that's coming to the bridge.
God. Did we just see an
That's a
alien
plane.
right now?
So it comes off the bridge. I think they're in North Van.
Is it coming towards us? Oh my God.
And then it'll stop. And then it'll fade out.
And what year was this, Jeff? This was
This
filmed?
sighting, this one here,
Yeah. Yeah.
2012.
Yeah.
All right, so it just stopped.
Yeah, it stopped. There you go. It just stops. And then it just disappears.
It just takes off.
Yeah. Look at that. You can see it disappear. Yeah.
Yeah, where's the second one?
Yeah. So interesting stuff, man. These guys are all over the place. Okay, so for me, these are great aliens. And my whole thing is, look at how docile they are. They're like, it's actually quite beautiful when you think about some of these things, the way they kind of slowly, gently move, creating weird formations, being gentle in the sky. These are gray aliens for me. And I can't say that all red orbs are gray aliens, because there are some cases where we have a red color and it turns off and then like a humanoid will come out. So all red orbs can't be gray aliens, but these ones are acting all kind of similar. For me, these are all the same things, and they're all gray aliens, and they're who, I don't know what they're doing. They're expressing themselves, or they're having fun, or who knows. I don't know what this stuff is, but fascinating though nonetheless.
Jeff, I have a comment, if I may.
Hey Troy, yeah, what's that?
I think it's quite accurate that they might be testing us. I feel they might be testing us just by showing up in these very gentle ways, very silent, and then disappear. Probably testing our reaction to their sightings and see if we're even ready to react positively or neutrally, or in what way.
Awesome, man. I totally, yeah, bang on, especially, again, I come back to the paranormal. Yeah, and then they would be able to observe that, not in their physical bodies, coming back and looking at how we observe it. And then also, what do you do with that information? Where does it go? Yeah, I think you're right. I think that bang on, man. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so for those who have been watching my story, this was done in a Q&A. So here I am out with my wife down the spit over at Iona Beach. What I'm talking about is over here. So Iona has a spit. This is a park. This is a public park, and it's for the public. You can walk out there. It's 5 kilometers. We were somewhere in the middle. So that's where the story takes place. And we're walking down the spit. You know what? For those who don't know, here in Vancouver, we have a spit, and it goes out. It's underneath the. It's in the Georgia Strait, but the planes will fly over this. This is the airport right here. Spit. So me and my wife are coming back, going onto the mainland, walking down the spit, and a plane flies over us. And here I am thinking about this stuff, about the aliens. Oh, I could feel something was in the sky, even right there. And I could feel this presence. And then this plane goes over us. Well, then I hear the plane and it leaves. Then this distortion occurs in the sky, and it goes. So the plane goes. I'll make these noises. Sorry for the noise making. Makes a big noise, and then all of a sudden it leaves, and then I hear. It sounds like a tornado whipped up, and all of a sudden I can hear the plane again. There was no plane in the sky, and it sounded like someone had bent and distorted space. So I could hear the sound that had just occurred was occurring again, and yet it was distorted by this wind, and it was some kind of gravity effect or something. I couldn't even figure it out. It was like, and it was louder than it had ever been before. I got my wife. I said, "Doc, what's going on, Doc?" And I get her and I grab her and hold her down, and she's like, "What is going on?" And I'm like, "Did you hear that? That's insane. What's that noise?" I'm looking up, and she's like, "What noise?" I'm like, "You didn't just hear that?" And at first I thought it was her, right? It was like, oh my God, she's so unperceptive. Like, how could she not hear that? You didn't hear the plane and then hear the plane later, and there was no plane in the sky. And she's like, no. And I'm like, you didn't hear the plane that was louder and making this wind noise, whipping around? No, I didn't hear that. And then I learned at a CE5 that people can be side by side. One person can see something and the other person cannot. And then I realized that. Okay, that's the bottom line with that. So Jeff Selver isn't crazy. So in 2018 at Sea Island, in the exact same spot, my older brother, 63, and I, 48, were walking back from the end of the outpipe at Iona Park, Friday, November 9th, from 2 p.m. at about the 2-kilometer mark. The guys in the exact same spot. Walking towards the road, we both heard a motorized sound flying toward us from behind. We both said, plane coming again, but the noise was quite lower. For me, I said louder. And as it was just above us, we both looked up and behind. We saw nothing, but now the energy flow was evident. Not a wind or something, but definitely hear a whooshing sound, whooshing, wailing sound that hovers above us. That's what happened to me. Definitely rotating clockwise for 2 to 3 minutes. I was looking, concentrating on seeing something that obviously sounds like it was fairly large, rotating, hovering 20 feet above us. No gusts. That's what happened to me. There was I didn't feel any wind, no nothing. No gust, no temperature change, no ripples in the air, but an energy definitely from above. Then it left. We could hear it leave straight in front of us. You could hear it still 500 meters away. We were in awe. Okay, so I've been wanting to say that for a long time. I'm not crazy. You think you're crazy. You sound, you're aware all the stuff coming out of your mouth sounds totally insane. But like this happened and this is happening to me. And also, so the synchronicity, that day it happened to me, I was the one feeling them. And the fascinating thing for me here is, as I rip apart all this bigger picture, this is a consistent type of communication. I've had it more than once. I had it that day that I'm telling the story there, but I also work on the other side of the airport. The flights come in from both sides, depending on the day. And on this side, I had the exact same experience. I've had it twice because I work over here. And so you can hear the airlines go over, and I'll show up at 6 a.m. to my job, and then I'll hear the whipping sound, and I'm above, and every time it's personal to me. So it's, I'm thinking about something, I'm interacting, I'm thinking about either the aliens, I'm thinking about something in my personal life, and the one I'm talking about in the video, I'm thinking about them and I'm saying, I think I can feel them. I think it's them. And then she gives me evidence, which for me is a synchronicity. Okay, so what's weird here is that they're consistently, as a paranormal entity, showing themselves exactly the same way to different people in the same spot. But that's that's just really weird for me, that depending on where you are in the physical environment, they're demonstrating themselves in a consistent way in that physical environment. And that's what I find really fascinating and very, very interesting here. They're using the airport, they're using something to do with, anyway, I also call it distortion of time, because the sound, the plane went over and then it was a repeat of the sound, like as if they just took the sound out of the air that had just occurred and they replayed it back. I can't even wrap my head around it. It was, and it's louder than it was last time. It's just, I don't even understand exactly what's going on here, and it's fascinating as hell. And I was very happy to see that someone else had experienced that, that was in the database. So that's really, really good. So I've been wanting to do that one for a long time, to mention that.
Yeah, Jeff, I was just going to say,
yeah,
Linda Moulton Howe has covered the strange signs, the booms from the air, etc.
right.
And she's covered this since, I believe it was first became popular in 2012. But it seems to be, for a lot of the witnesses, they seem to be very targeted, focused. It seems to be a focused noise. So we can have people in one room who hear the noise, and an incredible noise, crashing noise, loud boom or whatever. They run out into the other room and they say, "What was that?" And the family say, "What are you talking about?" And this is again the focused sound that some people can hear but others can't.
Oh, fascinating. Well, that's great. It's great because I've experienced it personally, and then was the butt end of someone else not hearing it, and you sound like a total nut job. But not just that, but fascinating, consciousness to consciousness. Again, the individuation. Interesting stuff here. So tied to this, there's actually a really fascinating and well-documented sighting on the UFO BC site around the actual airport. So 4 workers witnessed a UFO. This is the details. A ground crew worker witnessed a metallic, highly reflective ball-bearing shaped object. The worker noticed the air traffic on the busy runway stopped during the sighting and resumed sometime afterwards. So it was over here. All that detail is actually in the report, and it landed over here. And then the next day, there were workers out there, Chevy Safari vans with tinted windows, 3 YVR trucks, and and people in suits were walking out in the area. So that's really fascinating. Yeah, this is it here. So it's actually really detailed. The UFO BC investigated it, and they went and tried to call the control tower, and no one would confirm, the event actually happened. So yeah, fascinating, totally though. So definitely UFO activity occurs out in the Iona area there. So my gray alien communicates to me through paranormal activity, which is why I'm so heavily focused today on the paranormal. I spoke on my book launch on 2021, the video was The Rising, the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Planet Earth. It was my book launch video. And I wrote there, the elder came to me in paranormal form using angel hair twice. So I've never talked about this too much. Again, I'm dealing at this point, I'm comfortable with them, and that whole belief system had raised. I knew that these orbs were them, and I said, okay, this is you. I actually was very specific. I'm having this alien contact. I'm seeing orbs, it's you, and I know it's you. And then they would do things to confirm that. So I'm raising my belief level, and then all of a sudden it gets more intense. The paranormal activity in my life got intense, and there's nothing to do. It's personal to consciousness to consciousness. She doesn't want to be filmed. It's not evidence for her. They don't want that. They don't want that that ego drive, if you will, to show, hey, look, everybody, I got cool videos of a ghost on my YouTube channel. They don't want that. They don't want the they don't want to be used, almost is what it's like. And so it becomes personal consciousness to consciousness. So the angel hair stuff was all personal. So for example, I'm sitting on my couch, and then I'm thinking about them, and all of a sudden, blah, this stuff flies by my window. It is, I didn't even know angel hair at the time when it happened. It's I have a Wikipedia thing here on it, and they call it, and I thought this was a neat description, cobweb or jelly. And that's exactly what this was. It's like a mucus, almost like a jelly, but it's thin, and when it stretches out, it's thin, cobweb-like. Yet it has a mucusy jello kind of effect to it. And when I saw it, it's massive. It's like a whole thing that's probably five or more feet long, big, and it flew by my window. And I'm like, what is that? As I'm staring at it. And then I'm like, that's got to be them, because I don't know what the hell that is. And then I feel the telepathy right afterwards. Okay, so that's one. Number two, when I'm saying, okay, I've confirmed that I think these things are you, because I'm having these thoughts at that specific time in a paranormal fashion. You're able to read those thoughts. So one day I'm sitting on the back edge of my building, and I'm saying, I actually said to her, I love when you show yourself to me, because I think that's so fun. And then right away, instantaneously after the thought, right below the deck, because I live on an apartment complex, right below the deck, whoa, this huge, angel hair mess, and it spreads out. It's massive. It must have been anywhere between 8 feet big. It could have been, 6 or 7 feet from me. And it spreads out, it expands in the sky, and as it stretches out, it disappears. So it thins out, and then it's gone. And I'm at the moment, I know it's them, and I just accept it. I'm like, yeah, I get all excited. And I was actually, I get really excited by those kind of interactions. And so what's fascinating to me is that in the UFO lore, angel hair seems to be consistent with, people think it's with UFO sightings. But the actual reports in the UFO BC had nothing to do with UFO sightings. They were just paranormal events. And that's what it is for me. They're just paranormal events. And for me, I think the aliens are in this other, astral world, or wherever they are, and they're able to manipulate very easily, or create, if you will, angel hair. And I've seen her be angel hair in my apartment as well, floating angel hair. And that's what you got here. Someone has a report, went out to paddleboarding with a friend and saw a strange cobweb-like substance. It was covering the paddle, sticking to my hands, and it was floating in the air in strange formations that were almost stiff, floating everywhere. And so he even says he looked back 300 meters in every direction. It was hard to paddle without it getting stuck all over me. So here's a stretchy cotton-like stuff, balled up and rubbed when he was in his fingers. Fascinating as hell. And we get another one here too. We noticed that the air was filled with long strings of something white drifting down from the sky. We tried to catch them, but there was nothing there. And that's what happened to me. In one case, it happened in my house, and then I couldn't, it was stuck to me. And as I pulled away, it disappeared. And then I couldn't it was attached to a lamp, and the lamp was, all of a sudden there was no spider web on the lamp, and it was just gone. And so in both cases, those are communications, and I'm experiencing telepathy either afterwards, or she's confirming something that I'm thinking in a paranormal fashion. Ian, when it comes to angel hair, so the theory goes that this stuff happens with UFO crafts. The people, as if the UFO craft lands and then there's angel hair. But here I am saying that it's kind of, for me, I don't know that. I associate it with the paranormal. So what's your take on that? Have you heard of this? Like kind of it being more paranormal versus being associated with a physical object?
Here's the thing. It's also very much associated in folklore and also with the, let's say, visions of the Virgin Mary. That has also been reported that this mysterious angel hair material has been found in those visitation events as well. So I know it was popularized when I first started reading a lot of those early, let's say 1960s pulp paperback books that I used to buy from the United States. It was featured in a lot of those early sightings. And I think, again, we're looking at, let's say, the folkloric aspect of the paranormal. But there is a UFO. I was just online at the moment looking through a UFO contactee, an abductee who contacted me about 6 or 7 years ago. And I think she had actually got some of this that had actually fallen in her garden. But she had other experiences as well. Lots of podcast activity, shadow people, UFO activity, lots and lots of other strange things. So yes, it is paranormal, but not exclusive to UFOs.
Right. That's what, and I just found that really fascinating because the whole science behind it, they were trying to create a science that's generated somehow as an after effect of the UFO, but that doesn't seem to be the case for me. It seems to be generated as my whole thing is that if you're in that other realm, then that's something that must be easy for them to make as manipulate matter kind of thing, so they can make it as out of will, right?
Exactly, and it's got the comparisons as well with the ectoplasm that we see in the old seances and the spiritualist circles in the going back to the 1900s.
Well, that's a fascinating comparison I never thought of. And you're talking about, because I mentioned this jelly. That's what it's got a jelly fluid type substance, and then when it can string out. So that would be very plasma, actually. A very interesting connection, man. Thank you. That's a very neat one. Yeah. Okay, so again, talking about observation, 2017 in Vancouver, I looked up towards the northeast sky and saw what I thought was a bright planet or star, except it was moving diagonally downwards and to the south. I then thought it must be a bright satellite or maybe the International Space Station. Then the object just stopped. It moved up and down and side to side slightly. Okay, the only thing I'm just trying to say here about my fascination with this one is, so it's the jokes, you're right, the kind of comedy that the elder plays with me. And she's playing with my perception, and I just find this stuff hilarious. I'm consistently seeing them. It's at a period where I'm seeing them pretty rapidly, pretty consistently. And every time I would go out to a deck or my balcony, I would see an orb, and it would be tied with something I'm writing, something I'm doing. Anyway, one day I go out, and there's this bright white object moving through the sky, and I'm like, oh my God, I think it's them. I get excited. But then usually they display something abnormal to make me, to confirm for me that this was not that this was them, and nothing happens. And I'm like, oh, could this be the ISS, the International Space Station? And I'm sitting there staring at it. And then I pull out a sky view and I look at it, and it turns out, it was the International Space Station. The way it curved, and it kind of curved and keeps going. I thought, oh, okay, I got fooled. I was really excited. I wanted it to be them. Whatever. The next night I come out, exactly the same curvature, exactly the same spot, the exact same way, the exact same timing. I came out the same time of the night. I came out and I look up the sky, the exact same curvature. I can't even tell you. It comes out the exact same way, except it's a little bit light, a little bit brighter, a little bit whiter, a little bit larger. And I'm like, okay, that's got to be the International Space Station. Of course, I'm not going to get fooled again this time. And then I pull out Skyview, and there's no International Space Station, and I'm like, what? that's got to be them. And of course, what as it happens? There's a set of clouds and it goes underneath the clouds. It's the International Space Station underneath the clouds. So I see her just joking around, right? She's playing around. I get fooled one night thinking it's them, and then the next night it is them, but then I don't think it's them, and then they demonstrate something with which shows it's them. So right, because it was so close. If that was an actual craft, that was 300 feet in the air at least. These are low clouds, and so for me also observation effect. She knew exactly how to proceed to show herself in a way to replicate what I saw yesterday. So that's like the observation effect. They're very aware of how they're being perceived. Something about the paranormal where they can understand how they're going to be seen through your eyes. And I just found that hilarious, funny, but also fascinating, because then it's playing on perception and it's kind of a joke for them, right? Yeah, I needed to throw that one in there.